They risked their lives serving our country in Iraq and Afghanistan, but they never expected one of the biggest dangers would be not from the enemy, but from right on base, exposure to burn pits. It's being called the new Agent Orange, and tonight you'll meet a woman now serving with Jacksonville's 125th Fighter Wing of the Florida Air National Guard, serving while struggling to get answers, to get treatment, to get a diagnosis, not knowing what is next. And she's not alone.
You know, everything that I do, I have to gut out now and like near tears, whereas that's not who I was.
Nicole Rosga looks like and is a warrior. What you don't see are her invisible wounds.
I noticed just this shortness of breath. The doctors were like, we can't really find anything.
2 months after returning from a tour in Balad, Iraq, Technical Sergeant Rosga realized something wasn't right. That was 2009. Since then, she says her health problems have only gotten worse.
One doctor after another, trying to figure out why I have the shortness of breath, then I have this GI distress, then that leads into a systemic response, like my body, everything just like hurts.
She describes the box of medical records she's acquired over the past decade as the size of a treasure chest, and still no answers.
I had to quit a couple different jobs because I couldn't function.
Like thousands of other service members and veterans, she believes the source of her suffering began on the ground in Iraq. Part of her mission with the Minnesota Air National Guard in 2007 and 2009 was to dispose of classified material.
So one of my jobs was literally being at the edge of the burn pit and burning these pubs.
What she remembers the most was the toxic smell in the air and the plumes of smoke that hovered over Joint Base Balad day and night.
You cough up, black stuff, gray stuff, really, really gross stuff. But I didn't have a choice. It was there. I wasn't gonna escape it. Nobody was escaping that.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Brewer was tasked with assessing the base and burn pits as an environmental engineer for U.S. Central Command in Iraq and Afghanistan.
There he goes.
He raised concerns about them in 2005 before Rosga ever deployed.
Fumes and the smoke coming off this is going across the base, and they're burning all the really, really bad stuff at night so you can't see. That's when people were sleeping. And so they're breathing these fumes all night long, and they don't even know it.
The Department of Defense admits open-air burn pits have been used to burn everything from chemicals to paint, plastics, petroleum products, even medical and human waste, often ignited with jet fuel. The DoD says they're still used as a short-term solution during contingency operations when no alternative is feasible. What makes you think that your symptoms and your issues are connected to the burn pits?
What else would it be but this thing that I was exposed to that clearly has documentation of page after page after page of these carcinogens and all these other things.
Spread your arms in the hands.
While the Veterans Administration is continuing to study the health of deployed veterans, right now it says research does not show evidence of long-term health problems from exposure to burn pits. But this 2006 Air Force memo raised concerns that they pose an acute and chronic health hazard. Rosga has watched others in her unit get sick. Some even die after returning from deployment. Amy Muller served with her in Balad. She died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 36, leaving behind her 3 children and husband.
When I think about stuff like that, I'm 33, so I'm like, well, when is it going to be, when's my turn?
In 2014, the VA started a registry for those exposed to burn pits to report health concerns. It now includes the names of more than 173,000 veterans and service members, more than 9,000 from Florida. But surviving family members are prohibited from registering the names of loved ones who died after being exposed to burn pits, something Senator Marco Rubio says needs to change.
Government agencies are usually resistant to anything that could lead to an increased cost in their budget they haven't planned for. But I don't think there's any excuse to not provide men and women who served our country the care we promised them.
Senator Rubio says enough people are coming forward that this deserves more attention.
If you have unexplained ailments that could be service-related, my sense is that the presumption should be that it should be service-oriented in our thinking.
Retired Army Captain Leroy Torres, co-founder of Burn Pits 360, is fighting for those suffering, while he himself fights a debilitating lung condition.
That's why our slogan has been the war that followed us home.
His group started its own burn pit registry and says more than 500 veterans exposed to toxic smoke have reported what they believe to be service-related cancers. More than 100 have died. The VA declined our request for an interview, but says of the roughly 11,000 burn pit-related claims it has processed since 2007, about 2,000 have been granted. 80% have been denied. Torres's organization wants the VA to recognize the link between illness and burn pits and to compensate those who are suffering.
Deny, deny, deny. This is no different than what they did for years with Agent Orange. Wait till enough of them have died off and that we can manage it, and then we'll recognize it.
But when I'm sitting here saying there's something wrong with me, hear me. Let's do something about it. Because I'm not the only one. Like, I feel like we are owed that.
And to the VA, to the military, what do you want to say to them? What do you want them to know?
That this is real. That your people are suffering.
A lot of people are suffering, and right now there are several pieces of legislation related to burn pits before Congress. Now, one of them would allow family members of a deceased veteran to add their name to the VA's burn pit registry. Another one would require the VA to begin treating veterans suffering from the lung condition Leroy Torres has. And tomorrow, Burn Pits 360 is bringing together a panel of legal and medical experts for a congressional briefing it is hosting in the nation's capital. And Anthony, I've posted a lot more information on this story and that legislation on firstcoastnews.com.
A very important topic to talk about. So Heather, that service member that you featured in your story, Nicole, she's still serving, right? She's going to be deployed soon.
She recently was. She actually was deployed this month for her 4th tour overseas. And what really stood out to me as I was covering the story is that Nicole and all the veterans who I spoke with, they all said they would serve and do it all over again despite the outcome. That is how much they love our country.